Council for September 28th, 2022. Dan, would you please call the roll? Dan?
Okay, sorry, Clara?
Yes. Oh, yes, I'm here. Okay.
Into the Gulf of, the Atlantic, and turn back into the Southeast.
Right.
Uncertainty left is in this phase of the forecast. It can regenerate as
please mute yourself if you're not on speaking. Good.
Take care of it.
Thank you.
Michelle?
Here.
Jill? Jill? I see you. Okay. I think you're on mute. Okay, you're here. Thumbs up for here? Yeah, okay. Dave? Here. Len? Here. And I'm here, so we're all here. 7 total.
Thank you, Dan. To let you know, we have 3 items that will be officially considered on the agenda tonight, and there will be time for people to speak about each of those. Those will be the Quarry Park Master Plan, a proposed AV kiosk at the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, and MCC comments on Cypress Point housing development. There's also room for public comment, which I'll call for in a few minutes, on anything not on the agenda. So let's move now to the Board of Supervisors report. Lena, please.
Thank you. So first off, the board approved the budget revisions yesterday. The supervisor did mention the airport in Half Moon Bay and the need to obtain some of this unleaded fuel that's been approved by the FAA for all aircrafts. At this, so I was unaware at this point in time, within our district discretionary, the supervisor does not believe we have capacity to pay for soil testing. So if we were to do that, it would need to come from a larger county budget and be voted on. So I'm unsure if that's something that he will pursue just yet, but I'll let you know definitively soon. There was a question about the Parks Fund last week, and I have been told by Planning and Building that they will have an update for me within the week. So you should hear from me within about a week to a week and a half with that update. I'll pass it right along to you. And then wanted to let y'all know, and I can provide more detail on this at this meeting or next meeting, but Supervisor Horsley and Supervisor Pine are bringing forward a proposed minimum wage for the unincorporated areas of San Mateo County. That minimum wage is proposed to go in effect in July of next year. The lower wage would be $15.50 an hour for employers of 25 employees or less, which will actually be consistent with the state minimum wage. And then $16.50 for employers of 26 employees or more. The critical piece being that this would in perpetuity increase by 3% or CPI, whichever is less. But we will be having a study session before this is voted on at the October 18th board meeting. So just want to put that on your radar. And then, so last year, the Board of Supervisors voted to end the practice of transferring inmates to the Federal Immigration Agency. Before that was put into effect, there was at least one, I don't know how many, but at least one transfer of an inmate. So we will have one final Truth Act forum this is just something that I've been scheduling. So this isn't official, but it's going to be most likely on November 9th, starting at 6 p.m. So wanted to let y'all know about that as well. And then there was a question about what policies exist in the county regarding plastic turf usage. So I got an answer from Planning and Building and from Parks, and I'm awaiting an answer from DPW, but I will try and summarize. For Planning and Building, private property, the drainage manual basically says that artificial turf is considered a pervious surface. So long as it is underlain by an appropriate drain, rock, sand layer and infiltrates into native soil. So that is a length of 3 inches on the bay side and 4 inches on the coast side. And I couldn't summarize that because I don't fully know what that means, frankly. For Parks, they do not currently have an official turf policy. Currently, there is no artificial turf present in any of the parks, but it is possibly being considered for some use on some sport fields in Flood Park. So that's what I have on that. And the most recent COVID update the board got was a week old, so I just didn't feel like it was really relevant and haven't included it. But if people have specific questions on that, I'm happy to include it. And also, I've realized I've kind of dropped the ball on sharing my written update, so I've prepared this one to be shared as well, and I apologize for that. I would be ecstatic to take questions.
Okay. Other questions for Lena? I have one to start with. Since I got in before anybody else, which is on the report on the mitigation fund. I'm delighted that they're going to give you statistics on that. I'll wait that. But they're also supposed to present that to the Board of Supervisors. Are they doing that at the same time?
So I have a very vague update as of right now, but my understanding is what they're going to tell me is their plan to take it to the board.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sid?
Thank you. That was sort of my question, but I also wanted to know if they're planning to raise the fee because they haven't done it since 2016. And that's what the fee that they charge any new residential development on the coast, which should be put towards parks facilities such as community centers, but they haven't all these years. So I guess this is more to Claire than to Lena, but Lena, thank you for finally getting back to us on that. Will we be having Steve Monowitz come to the Midcoast Community Council once they get it all finalized? Just let us know where the money's been spent in the last, let's see, 5 years, something like that. This is 2022, and he last gave us a report in 2016.
It's most important that he gives a report to the Board of Supervisors, and that's what I'm trying to encourage him to do at this point.
Okay.
And we'll deal with what he comes up with.
And they have reported to the Board of Supervisors since then, and they have reported to us. They're still way out of date. The last one we had was fiscal year 2020. So they're not quite as far out of date as you think, Sid.
Was that the increase of the fee, or that was just an allocation of where the money was spent, Dave?
Both of those, and I believe that the fee did increase, but I don't remember. I'd have to go through the docs.
Is it on the MCC website? Do you know?
Yes, it is under finances.
We'll see if I could look for it. Thank you.
Dan, you have a question for Lena?
Yes, thank you, Lena, for your report. Yeah, Lena. Yeah, I understand. And thank you. You did your job. Thank you for giving us the report on it. And I know it's a complicated thing, but I just wanted to say that I think that moving forward, I'd like to work on having some suggestion to encourage basically to not use plastic turf. A lot of us already know all of the plastics in the environment, and we want to minimize that. So thank you there. And also thank you, Lena, very much for connecting me with Zach seems like a pretty good guy, and hopefully, all that will work out. So thank you very much. Doing a great job, Lena. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Jill, you have a question for Lena.
Hi, Lena.
Hi.
Hi. I have a question about affordable housing.
Mhm.
I'm unsure how it works. I'm hoping you can answer this. So I know we're pushing for affordable housing all over California.
Mhm.
Is there an allotment of so much housing? Say Half Moon Bay has to add 200 or San Mateo County has to add so many. Do you know if there's numbers out there?
Yes, and it is confusing. I struggle with it. So I believe they're called RENA numbers, and it's given by the state. I think on a yearly basis, and maybe not. I don't know. I'm seeing some skeptical looks. So they're given out at some period of time, but it's kind of a complicated issue because historically most places have not necessarily complied with those numbers because they're very high, and so then they increase in number, and then it becomes harder and harder to follow them. And also historically there has been I guess this is not necessarily some sort of some action if people don't comply, but that may change in the future. So I think it's probably a long answer that I'm maybe not prepared to answer completely right now. So let me get you some information on that and pass it on.
Thank you.
Sid, I'm going to ask you if you could put your question in chat or your comment in chat.
It wasn't a question. I was just going to reply to Jill because I know a lot more about it. It's the Regional Housing Needs Allocation is what the RENA stands for. But if you Google any city and look under their planning commission to find out what their housing element is, that's where they determine their allocations. Like Redwood City is 9,000 for the next until 2031, and it's a 10-year allocation. That's all I was going to say.
And a lot of this doesn't apply to the Midcoast, so this might warrant a study session at some point in the future, just so we can wrap our heads around it. Thank you. Harvey, move on to you, please.
The RENA numbers are actually for an 8-year period, and the unincorporated county has its allocation. That's all available information. I have a very short report this meeting. Our CARES team, which is the responsible agency now for dealing with mental health emergencies that don't require armed response, met with the Star Vista team, who is responsible for answering the calls for 988. 988 is the new national suicide prevention and mental health crisis number. And the Star Vista people have been educated that in the case of an emergency that involves a coast side, the entire coast side from Montero all the way down to south of Half Moon Bay, that the response will go to the CARES team. So anybody who dials 988 as well as 911 in a mental health crisis will get a response from the CARES team, which I think is a really good step in the right direction. The other news about the city is that we are going to be using some of our philanthropic funds from the Chan Zuckerberg initiative to fund digital navigators, which is a fancy term for people who are going to help other people learn about the internet and provide them, if they are eligible, for free or very cheap digital internet hardware and education about how to use the internet. And they've met with Puente and Coastside Hope, and we're going to be having these digital navigators on board very soon. The last item is a happy item that on Saturday, the 1st, We're going to have the first Mavericks Festival. It's going to be at Pillar Point Harbor from 11 to 6. And it should be a fun event with music and lots of stuff oriented towards the surf festival. So I hope you can all make it. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Harvey? Sid?
Hey, Harvey. I heard there was like some kind of vigilante thing happened at Smithfield about the homeless person that some people were, I guess you would say, terrorizing. And they said that the sheriffs couldn't do anything about it, even though one guy lost his bumper with his license plate. They probably could at least track one of them. Do you know any reason why the sheriffs won't go after looking for those people?
I know only what I read on Nextdoor.
Okay.
Which is not always the most reliable of sources. If it's really true, we're certainly going to be investigating that, because if, and I emphasize if it's really true, it's just unacceptable to ignore that action that allegedly happened to this homeless person.
Yeah, I know there was a license plate and a bumper posted on Nextdoor, so they could at least track down that person. And I agree, it's very, very sad. Thank you.
Sure.
Dan?
Yeah, thank you, Harvey, for your report. You may not have been able to find yet any policy on plastic turf for the city of Half Moon Bay, but I guess just a real short, I wanted to, and I know the whole thing with the Smithfield is complicated, and there will be further discussions about that, whether there's going to be plastic turf there. But I just wanted to encourage the concept of, I believe I've heard in the past certain cities offer rebates or help, for drought tolerant landscaping, whether it's succulents or whatever. Basically, hopefully moving forward, we can really bring it attention and encourage other type. Of course, succulents wouldn't work with the Smith field, but to minimize the use of plastics in our environment, I think it might be a good idea to explore options of helping anybody that is going to do some landscaping for drought, to get away from the use of the plastic turf and some other alternative method of landscaping. So that's just a suggestion, and appreciate that consideration. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Harvey. Are there any other government agencies here that wish to speak? Okay, I hear none. Announcements? Let's turn to public comment. As I say, you can speak on anything that's not on the formal agenda for up to 3 minutes. If you have a comment, please raise your hand. Sid?
Hi, I went to try to attend the fire board meeting, and the MCC has on their calendar that their meeting starts on 6 p.m. They've moved them to 4 p.m. and they are hybrid meetings through the end of the year. So I just wanted to, I don't know who takes care of that calendar on the MCC website, but it's wrong now because they've changed their meeting times. And, they talked about a number of things, but you can watch their video.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have public comment? We'll move to, I'm thinking that we should probably make an announcement for those who didn't hear it about Harold. Greg, do you want to repeat anything?
Yeah, I believe it's okay for me to mention this in public. His wife has notified Clemens and asked Clemens to reach out to the community. So I'm going to pass along that Harold Herman was killed in an accident while on his bicycle in Lost Beach today by a large truck. I don't have more details, but there was a crew from MWSD working a few feet away, and they were almost hit. So we will have, I'm sure, more information. For those interested, feel free to contact me or Clemens if you're interested in supporting the family, attending funeral arrangements that might be announced, and so forth. But I always viewed Harold as a valuable member of this community. You've seen his passion about airport lead and the many things that he was concerned about. And it's just, it's a terrible loss, in my opinion. So my condolences to his family, and I hope we will do what we can to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. We'll move on to the consent agenda. There are, I believe, 2 items on the consent agenda. One is the minutes for the previous 2 meetings, and one is recognition of the Jewish New Year.
I request that both minutes be pulled for later discussion.
Is there okay? That's been requested. We will move that to the end of the meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the remaining part of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Dan, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Claire?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Len?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I'm yes, so it's approved 7-0.
Thank you. So now we'll move into the itemized items on the agenda. We're starting with an item on the Quarry Park Master Plan, which is going to be presented by Len Herrickson.
Thank you, Claire. Dave, could you make me a co-host so I can present? Did you hear me, Dave? I'm good.
We're working on it. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
And for anybody else on the council, if you're going to want to present, please let me know ahead of time.
Appreciate that, Dave. Let's see. I see that Hannah Ormshaw is here, and is Hannah, do you know if Nicholas will be here?
Nicholas will be on, but I'll be able to cover anything regarding the master plan.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, I want to give just a quick overview of the Quarry Park and the master plan process. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So just to do a longer term review, Quarry Park was a community park for several years, operated by members of the community and their organization with an agreement with the county. And then in 2009, 2010, the county park system took it over and made it an official park within the county. And 4 years later, a large amount of property called the Wicklow property was added to Quarry Park, bringing together its current size. In looking at the master plan for the park, the county merged both the larger version of Quarry Park with Wicklow, as well as the 2 sections of Marata Surf West, which is at the beach, and Marata Surf East, just on the opposite side of the highway from it. So that makes it quite a large holding, one that has property that extends literally from the ocean up into the hills and joins other parks. In 2016, a master plan process was initiated, and in 2017 and 2018, several public meetings were held on the master plan. And in 2018, you had the last sort of major presentation of the master plan, and then due to both staffing issues as well as the COVID pandemic, there was really no further public presentation activity on that until the current year. They did move ahead with it, and so in April of this year, they published the full draft of the master plan. It was discussed both in the Parks Commission. It was published on their website, and we had links to it. And then in August, they published what they refer to as the final master plan draft. I put in the slides. These are links, both what's on our website and on the county page. So we now get to the timeline that they've set up for a master plan submission. The master plan is due to be was presented to the Parks Commission in the first of this month, and due to come to the Board of Supervisors as a submission, which once submitted leads to, if it's accepted by the board, an extensive environmental review process, which kicks off afterwards. That's an extended review, most likely a neg deck or an EIR, but it's just a full CEQA review. And that presentation is due to be done sometime in the first half of next year. And with that complete, then the final version of the master plan and the environmental documents can be presented to the supervisors for adoption. Now, one thing in the presentations that are out there, those of you who have looked at the master plan in considerable detail, you'll understand that it's a very high-level document relative to Quarry Park, but it does take on the full expanse of the park, both the Murata surf areas and the Quarry Park itself. And there are any number of parts and levels that are discussed there. So we're not going to look at that in this presentation. The assumption is people are aware of it. Below that is the continuing amount of activity going on that often lead to projects that require coastal development permits. I mean, for example, I think one was presented today for a parking lot expansion on the future roadmap, or project to build a pump track vault toilet, major work on the South Ridge Wildfire Trail, and then several wildfire projects. Furthermore, our local Quarry Park is now quite distinctive in terms of being a park that does projects and activities that are not done in other parks. Most significantly, the dogs off leash, where Quarry Park is the pilot program within the whole park system for that. We've implemented a pump track, and that's led to quite a bit of interest in the mountain bike trails. And so there also is considerable work to provide the standards for mountain bike trails and look at building a trail network that would allow for both single-use mountain bike trails as well as those for multi-use for the community. So all of those are there, and those are in receiving comments, and both between the May presentation on the master plan and this one, there were considerable specific points asked about it. Most of those are actually dealt with in more detailed projects that come on at different times. But at this point, I wanted to turn it over, make Hannah available to add any further comments she has and to take questions. But before I do, the letter that's been prepared for this submission, and I'll put it up on the screen right now, it is basically one that says the MCC appreciates the work that's been done on this and looks forward to the full review of the master plan, which most significantly includes the environmental review, which occurs after the Board of Supervisors receive and consider it in a meeting in October. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Hannah, both to make any further comments she would like to on this, as well as take questions. Hannah?
Yeah, thank you, Len. So I appreciate the overview of what's been underway to date and the process we've gone through in developing the master plan. As you'll recall, we did present to the MCC in May on the full master plan and sought additional public comment and had a survey out regarding the contents of this draft master plan before publication of the final draft in August. And so what I'm here tonight regarding is just information, providing information on the next steps for the master plan that Len outlined on his slides as well. Before that, however, I do just want to provide a brief reminder of what the master plan is and isn't, just to be able to distinguish the difference between what it means regarding the adoption of the plan versus implementation of some of the projects that are proposed in the plan. So the master plan itself is a visioning document, and it establishes these high-level goals and desires for Quarry Park. And a lot of these include expansion of the recreational amenities and opportunities at the park, other restoration opportunities for sensitive or native resources, and mitigating the threat of wildfire. But it's not a policy document, and it's not a document that specifically states where and how each individual project or activity in the plan will occur. But it does inform the department on the type of action that should be taken. And then the department would use its professional judgment and other environmental regulation, funding constraints, or logistics to determine how these efforts would actually be implemented. And all of these individual projects themselves would also be subject to additional definition or design, CEQA review, public review, and permitting. And so we are planning on presenting the master plan to the Board of Supervisors this fall. And the purpose of this will be to provide the board with an understanding of the master plan contents, what is the purpose of the plan and the process that has been involved in the plan's development. But at this time, we're not asking for the Board of Supervisors to adopt the master plan. This is meant right now as an informational presentation so that the board does have an understanding of the master plan contents. And so, as Len discussed, the next step after this, before we seek to adopt the master plan, will be to meet with our environmental consultants and determine what level of environmental review would be necessary for the master plan. And we'll be looking to our consultants to advise the department on this and determine what level of CEQA analysis is necessary. There could be a range of potential options, from exemptions to negative declaration or mitigated negative declaration, or even an EIR. And we'll be looking to them as subject matter experts on this to advise the department. We would be determining this prior to when we present to the board later this year as well, and can also return to the MCC just to update you on the appropriate CEQA route that we would be taking for the master plan. And just regarding CEQA overall, any CEQA review that is conducted for the master plan, it wouldn't be looking at all of the environmental effects for each individual project that's or activity that's proposed, but it would look at the plan as a whole. And this again kind of relates back to that fact that the master plan is itself a policy document or a project specific plan, and it wouldn't negate the necessity for individual projects to undergo their own planning or CEQA review or permitting processes. So, for example, the pump track, the master plan acknowledged the desire for the pump track, but all of the detail on that design or the implementation of that is not included in the plan, and it went through its own separate planning and permitting process outside of the master plan. Similarly, the South Ridge Fire Road, the plan itself acknowledges the need for improved fire access and improved fire response, but all of the details of the road design and implementation are not in the master plan, and it is going through its own separate process for this. And for those who are less familiar with CEQA overall, this process really does look at a variety of criteria to be able to determine what the potential impacts are, including but not limited to air quality, biological resources, hydrology, water quality, noise, traffic, wildfire. And with CEQA, there's a public review process involved. So there will always be future opportunities for public involvement in projects. And so after the CEQA review requirements determined, the master plan would then be brought back to the Board of Supervisors in order for them to formally adopt the final master plan.
Okay. Can we go ahead, Len, and move to questions?
Sure, yeah. If you would leave this section clear and ask the council to ask clarifying questions first and then the audience.
I think I don't really want to do that. I think I was going to say, I think it's pretty clear, but I don't think it actually is all that clear.
It's the council that ultimately has to vote on the letter.
I also would like to say that we did not get a chance to review the letter previous to the meeting, so we won't be voting on that tonight. But we can certainly take a look at it and make comments on it if we want to. Since there may be some technical questions that the council does want to clarify with Hannah, I will go ahead and ask for clarifying questions from the council. But please make sure that they are actually technical questions about what has been the process that she's presented. Are there any clarifying questions from the council to start with? Greg?
I hope this meets your criteria, Claire, and I'm pleased to see that we're not going to vote on the letter tonight because frankly, I haven't given this enough attention. Hannah, when we met at the park, we discussed the need for removing more eucalyptus in a patch of land adjacent to El Granada Boulevard, referred to often as the swath. So my question is, does the Quarry Park Master Plan have to include, or is it supposed to include, all the fire fuel reduction mitigation measures in the coming years, such as you've included that South Ridge road? So should this plan include everything you plan to do in the near term?
So the master plan does identify the necessity and the importance of wildfire risk mitigation projects, but it doesn't include the detail of every specific wildfire fuel reduction project or wildfire risk reduction project. It does refer to the department's wildfire fuel management program and references the specific projects that are currently included within that. But that would be the process for which the department would define and identify and expand on for their fuel reduction efforts. It would be contained within the wildfire fuel management program.
Well, then that raises the question of why you singled out this one fire road, separate from the overall fuel reduction plan.
So the fire road is not a project in the fuel management program. It's related to road and trail access, although it does provide a benefit in terms of fire response and emergency response. The wildfire fuel management program is much more focused on the vegetation management treatments and isn't a project included in that. And I believe within the master plan, the South Ridge Fire Road is referenced both in regard to its the wildfire risk reduction benefits, but also the road and trail network system within the park.
Okay. Dan, is your question related to the technical process that she's presenting, or is it more general?
Some clarifying questions.
Well, clarifying about what, though? Is it on the content or the process?
You're going to let me ask some questions?
I'm asking you if your question is appropriate.
I think they are.
Well, then if they're clarifying the process, please, if they're clarifying the process, go ahead, please.
Okay. So, thank you, Hannah, for your report and everything. So I didn't read every word of the latest report or master plan, but I did scan through it, and I don't think that anywhere in there is there like an acknowledgement that what we have here at Quarry Park is essentially a eucalyptus jungle. Am I correct to say that that's not been acknowledged?
No, it is acknowledged in the master plan. It does acknowledge that the eucalyptus forest has, specific management recommendations related to.
All right. I know there's efforts to thin that. Let's see. So trying to honor Claire here. I'm going to have another chance, correct, Claire?
Yes, this is just clarifying questions. We'll go to the council for sure.
Okay. So skipping a couple here. I think it was the original draft that was maybe back a few months ago talking about expanding or doing something to the corporation yard. Now, specifically, I believe that the corporation yard should be hedged, you know, have some, right now it's a cyclone fence with some kind of a green plastic fabric over it. I believe that it should be eventually have a hedge around it. It's essentially blending it in with the environment. Is that part of this? Is there any language in there that I might have missed?
No, there wouldn't be anything in the master plan to that level of specificity around recommendations for the corp yard.
Is there expansion involved?
It does discuss the corp yard and its location. I don't recall that it specifically recommends expansion of it, but just making sure that that's acknowledged as a necessary facility within the park.
Of course. And the proposal for the new bathroom next to the pump track. I grew up riding bicycles when I was a teenager. They have a bicycle. I know on the surface it sounds like, oh, okay, you know, hey, more people up there, let's put a bathroom there. But there is an impact to having an additional bathroom. What, you know, standards or criteria did you come up with beyond the obvious? But really, you know, all these kids have bicycles. It's just a little scoot down the road to use what is existing. And as far as I did read something about, you know, more capacity for added this and that. But really, what is is there a standard, like, you know, how long you have to wait in line for a bathroom? I mean, you know,
Dan, I'm finding this not to be.
I was clarifying. No, this is clarifying about.
It's clarifying not the procedure, not the process.
It's on the content of the document, Dan, which we'll get to next.
So the content, what is the need? You know, what is the criteria for the need of the new bathroom?
Well, it is located near the pump track where we are anticipating, you know, more focused use occurring, and it helps serve spectators, not just, you know, the people using the pump track itself that might be local, but other folks that are, you know, if it's families and parents coming to watch. But there's also considerations that it's centrally located, and a lot of the other park amenities are concentrated around the entry meadow area for Quarry Park. So it would serve other park visitors that are, you know, hiking in from, you know, the trail surrounding the meadow and the entry.
All right, thank you. I'll have further questions later. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a process question, which I guess I'm going to go ahead and ask, which is, do you actually need a letter from us for any purpose in the near future?
So the board is not going to be taking an action when we present to them this fall, but in the future, when we do seek adoption of the master plan, that would be a time when we would be seeking an action, like a formal action from the board. And so if that is you know, an item that the MCC would want to be able to provide a letter regarding, that would likely be best for you know, the time when we're going to the board for that adoption or that action. But
which is like spring?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Len, you're the presenter. Did you have something that you wanted to clarify?
Yeah, just to clarify the letter itself, it's intended to be very short. and basically acknowledges the process. So in effect, what it says, we're supportive of bringing this version and level of the master plan to the board now, with the emphasis on the fact it kicks off the review process, a long, fairly specific environmental review process. And at that point, we would have further comment. So what it acknowledges is support for the process of the submission as Hannah outlined it, and does not go to the final adoption recommendations until we get to that part of the process.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification. I'm going to turn it over to the community for questions. But first, I want to acknowledge that we did get a letter, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure as to say your name, but B. Silveria, representing some of the other neighbors in the area, wrote some thoughts, which they're here tonight. I'm hoping that you will go ahead and reiterate your thoughts for us here, but about several aspects of the plan. Since you are here, I don't think I'll go through all of them, but please feel free to speak up. Start with Sid.
Hannah, I was on the, guess it was, might have been September, might have actually been the last week of August, the Parks Commission meeting, and several neighbors had brought up the fact that the runoff from Quarry Park goes straight down Santa Maria, and Nicholas kind of brushed that off like, oh, that's a public works issue. But I really feel, at least for environmental purposes, you guys should keep your stormwater on the park property and just build some catch basins. It can't be that hard to do. And just recently on Nextdoor, someone posted a video of the water going way down Santa Maria coming from the park. It was really muddy water, and they had sandbags on every driveway on the street. So if, I know it's not going to happen soon, but maybe you could convince Nicholas to change his tune and not brush it off to be a Ann Stillman problem, but more like a county parks problem, to create some drainage, to hold back all the water that's in the muddy water that's coming in down the street into the neighborhoods from the park. Do you think you could possibly add that for Hannah?
Claire, would you like me to respond? I think there's some other comments related to runoff, so I can hold off a little bit on that.
Why don't you hold off then? That would be fine.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. B. Silveira, if you could please tell me how to say your name, I'd appreciate it, but please go ahead.
Yeah, it's Burnett Silvera. You don't pronounce the I, so okay. It's just like Silvera without the I. Yeah, I have a statement to read. It goes over those points that we raised in the correspondence, so let me go ahead and do that. We, the neighbors of Quarry Park, object to approval of the proposed final draft master plan and believe it must be amended. It disregards health and safety concerns raised and recognized in both the community outreach meetings in 2017 and 2018, and again noted in 2022. In correspondence to the council, we identified three crucial concerns that must be addressed by the master plans. The concerns not addressed are reduction of park drainage runoff that floods residential streets and properties, management of flash flooding risk to adjacent homes, and control of overflow parking and traffic impacts on neighboring residents. We object to the master plan because it doesn't address these concerns. The problems originate from the park, not from the surrounding neighborhood, yet it is the surrounding neighbors that suffer. We are the ones that have to sandbag every year to protect our properties from park runoff, as somebody just mentioned, live with the fear of flash floods to our families and homes, and endure increased parking and traffic and speeding on our streets. The master plan must be amended to address mitigating park drainage runoff so our properties are not flooded, making the reservoir safer from flash flooding our homes, which can be up to 3 feet at the entrance to the park, is what their PWA, their technical consultant, indicated, and better controlling overflow parking and traffic on neighboring streets. Expansion of the existing parking lot will help, but there's much more that must be done. Any letter from the council should support the need for these amendments to the master plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Fran.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. I just would like to add to that. We submitted, I'm part of the group that Mr. Silvera just spoke about, and we submitted all our comments on about four or five issues that we think were not addressed in the master plan, and they affect this community, this neighborhood tremendously. And so we're asking your support of it. If you could add an amendment to your letter, if you're going to do a letter or whenever you do, and support the community with what we need done. Because most of these issues are come from the park and affect our neighborhood the most. I've got a good announcement to make. This morning, the San Mateo County Planning Commission approved the extension of the parking lot. So that's one issue we've got that's going to be taken care of. And that was one of our issues. But you know, it'll help somewhat. But when there's 2 or 3 groups that come at the same time, they'll still be parking. There are sometimes 35, 40 cars in overflow parking, besides what the parking lot takes. So they're talking about 18 more spaces. That'll help, but it won't. I'm thinking maybe you should consider, County Park should consider reservations like you take in other parks, so that not everybody comes at the same time. Anyway, that's one issue. The other issue, well, our issues were the erosion, flood, the fire prevention and fuel reduction. We'd like added that you complete the border between Quarry Park and the community, the border that surrounds. It's already been planned, and we're asking county to allocate more money to do it sooner rather than later, before there's a disaster. And the other issue I have is a dog park that I'd like to know, Hannah, why that isn't even being considered. We saw in the master plan that it was a #1 issue. That was the #1 request in more than one survey done, that people want a dog park. And I can attest to it. They come and play in the children's playground every day, and that you can't combine the playground and the dog park. So we need a designated dog park, and I hope you will add that. And I think Burnett had other issues he wanted to talk about. Was
Fran, can you kind of summarize?
That's it. I don't know if Burnett wanted to touch on our other issues that we brought up, but anyway, you have our letters, and you know all the issues, and I hope you will just support our community in this, along with the master plan. Thank you.
And if the letter didn't go to Hannah, is it okay if we forward it to her?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Hannah, that looks like the end of public comment. Do you want to make any responses to public?
Just a quick comment, Claire. I captured both the letters and attachments from the people who sent it in, so I'll send them to Hannah in a group.
That'd be great.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to. So in regard to the drainage and runoff concerns, we have received comment regarding the drainage and runoff and flooding concerns. And one point of clarification I feel is worth making. There are a lot of reference to statements in the Pacific Watershed and Associate reports that, discuss areas of concern, discuss hazards and recommendations for how to address these. But then a lot of concern that that's not reflected in the master plan itself. But I think it's important to, while these documents are attachments to the master plan, we consider them an important component of the master plan, and all the information that's contained with them is valuable and important information that helps the department make future decisions regarding these concerns. And so while we don't reiterate every specific within these attachments, within these PWA reports, within the body of the master plan, all of the information that's contained with them is still relevant information for the department to consider and make future decisions on, and all the recommendations are still very pertinent and relevant to that process. That includes the reservoir and flooding related risks and concerns as well. I think another important point to note, and that is also something that's stated specifically within the PWA attachments as well, is that through this process, identifying these opportunities and objectives to execute the master plan is just one step of the process. That after this, it is really necessary to really get into any feasibility study or prioritization or planning efforts that indicating some of these opportunities or recommendations within a master plan is just one initial step in the whole process, and it doesn't negate the necessity to do further planning or consideration of how to implement some of these recommendations. And that applies to a lot of the concerns. I again reiterate that the master plan itself isn't a project specific document. It's a high level vision document, and everything that we work to implement beyond this, we'll consider all of the recommendations within the plan, but there would be a lot of additional judgment, permitting, planning efforts that would need to go into that to really determine what solutions are necessary. And Fran, to speak to the dog park, we did have that included within earlier public processes, but because the dog recreation process ended up following its own working group and public process to really determine what the public desires for dog recreation included, that was the real rationale for that transition to the focus on off-leash dog trails as the primary interest and use that was heard through that process.
Okay, thank you. We did close public comment. If there's other public comment, you might want to put it in the chat. We've got.
She didn't answer my question, though.
I'm sorry she didn't answer your question. Please reiterate it in chat if you want to. Otherwise, we have 10 more minutes in this agenda item. And we're going to go to the council for council comments, and then we'll move on to the next item. We'll start with Michelle. Do you have any? I'll just go around the group. I'll call on people. I'll get to everybody. Michelle, do you have any questions or comments?
No additional questions or comments at this time.
Okay. Greg?
Not at this time. I just need to do more reading and studying.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, thank you. So additional comments. I support the expanding parking lot, which the Planning Commission approved today. Although I do have some new ideas as far as future expansions, instead of having a large, just a giant parking lot, but have it separated into little sections. So everybody knows that it's Quarry Park is a eucalyptus jungle, and the community has been crying to have this thinned out in some way. I want to say that just recently, I hiked through the Rancho de San Antonio, the Mid-Penn Park down there off of Foothill and 280. Walked along the trail, and it's right there. You can't miss it. You walk right by it. One of their methods of controlling resprouting is taking 5 mil plastic, cutting the tree, 5 mil plastic, covering the trunk as low to the ground as possible, covering it with wood chips or dirt or whatever you have, basically just blocking the light. And this is a method that they use, and it was 100% successful. I'm not going to guarantee that it will be 100% successful every single time, but at least it was there. So
that's the point that you're going to make. If
I'm
you
not
have
done, hold on. What, I have the floor here. What's going on?
We're not wanting anyone to take more than 3 minutes. If you have more points to make within the next minute or so,
I'm going to try to be quick.
Okay.
Hold on. Yes, I have more points. Yes. So anyway, I'd like to, Nicholas, encourage you to take a hike at Rancho de San Antonio down there, and you can see what they did. Anyway, that's just, okay. Moving on. I'd like to see the corporation yard hedged. Have some planting around it to just kind of hide it. I grew up next to Golden Gate Park. I think that Quarry Park has a lot of potential. It's beautiful. Anyway, I think there can be some things learned how they're managing Golden Gate Park. That's a side note. We could, I want to continue any conversation on that. A lot of ideas there. Let's see. And then clearly there's overall funding restraints. The community wants a lot of stuff. I'm just going to say, hey, what's the cost of this new bathroom? How much is that going to take away from the other things that the community is asking for? I'm going to stop there.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Len.
I'd like to go last.
Okay, Dave.
I have a couple of comments. Certainly cannot block all the water coming through all of Quarry Park. That would lead to a huge dam at the base of the park, and that's just silly. That actually makes problems worse. But I do agree that completely separate from the master plan, it would make sense for the Parks Department to work with DPW to try and solve this problem, which has been a problem for the neighborhood for a while. And on the master plan itself, I had one generic comment. The master plan pretty much repeatedly dismisses Murata East as wetlands, and therefore we're not doing any planning for it. And those of us who use it regularly know that the wetlands, and in fact, the park's detailed studies repeat the same thing, that it's a very small percentage of Murata East that is a wetland in a seasonal land, which is pretty much all of the wetlands is seasonal. The entire upper portion of Murata East and some of the southern portions are not wetlands. And this is relevant because community members bring up things like disc golf and dog parks and other things. And as long as the master plan embeds the idea that it's wetlands and therefore shouldn't have facilities planned, none of that'll get considered. So I'll just suggest to Hannah and Nicholas that be revisited. Other than that, I've been following the master plan process since they started it. I think, as much as possible with community disagreements, which are significant, that the master plan has done a very good job, and I'm glad to see it moving toward closure. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill, you have a comment?
I agree with the residents. It would be nice to have more drainage thought out, and it seems like it should be easily solvable. So I hope that Public Works and the parks will get on that issue. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no comments, so I'll let Len finish it up.
Okay, thanks, Claire. As I said at the start, before we had comments from Hannah, the letter that I prepared, it is really approaching it at the level she's describing it. From the comments we just had, I think I would point to 3 items that came up that seemed things we should make note to Hannah. One was the water flow that comes out of the park. And I think Dave's comment was relevant in terms of collaboration with DPW. I think Marata East, again, it's an area that was minimized, and it really is a major park facility. It really is the linkage between a park that's a beach park, if you will, and a mountainside park. And it's really, can be part of the overall character of the park. So some notation would be good there. And in terms of Dan's comment, I think we've had estimates from both RCD and the CAL FIRE that there's a large and very expensive problem facing us to deal with the eucalyptus forest. And I think to a certain extent, it goes outside of what the park could be expected to do. And I think we have to figure out how to approach that. I'm not sure that beyond what they are doing, there's more we'd expect from them within their budget, but it should get some attention there. So I'm very hopeful when we bring this back next week that we do vote for it. I was disappointed that in the case of the transportation project, we made no comment when it went to the supervisors. And I just think that sort of, either to say yes or no, but to not answer, I think really is not reflecting what we should be doing. But the more important point, both with respect to transportation and this park in particular, and parks, is it really isn't something that the MCC as the deliberative and advisory body is set to go to the kind of detail people want. There used to be, in effect, a Friends of Quarry Park organization, and I think the community should consider reorganizing that. That's not a subcommittee of the MCC, but it's just as you have one for Fitzgerald, a group of that people really care about and put time into. And the level of discussion that we're putting here isn't something that the MCC will set up to do. So we have time to look at that as it goes forward. And the same problem actually exists in transportation as well. So that's my comment. If you have any notes relative to the letter, do send them to me because it'll be coming forward for adoption next meeting. Thank you.
I just take 10 seconds. Nicholas, I just wanted to say that I acknowledge some of the language in the report regarding cost savings and using the wood chips on site. So I want to thank you there. I want to give you a lot of credit there. And I just wanted to double up on the community's concern about the drainage. I believe that's an issue. Draining onto the community, sandbags, all that stuff. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. We have 1 minute. Greg, you have something that you would like to add?
I have a couple of process questions. So it's okay for council members to write Len regarding points we would like to see included in the next letter? Is that?
No, it's not okay.
Okay, because he just said send notes to him and I was questioning that.
I would assume as one single point to receive it, I could, but we should have a way that I can address it with other people in the discussion, Claire. So whichever way you want to go.
So Len, you had said you'll bring it back next meeting, but I think we had heard from the Parks Department, and I think Claire was leaning this direction, that there's no need to do it at this point, since it's just an informational briefing to the board, that we should wait until spring when it gets to an actual action.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I don't agree. I mean, it's a specific action they take to both receive it and move forward with the environmental review, and I think we should be supportive of that, but it's not the same as an up-down on the master plan itself.
Well, my other process question is are you forming a subcommittee to work with Len to strengthen the letter?
I'm not. And I may have misspoke. I guess it would be appropriate for people to send one-way communications to Len regarding things that they thought. But if we had this letter in time to take action on it tonight, we might have done that. I don't know that we're going to have time to bring it up a second time, but I can talk with Len about that offline and try to figure that out.
Claire, you told me to put the rest of my comments in the chat. So can someone copy that and give it to Len? Because I don't want to redo the whole thing.
Len will get a copy of the chat log at the end of the meeting. Thank you. Yeah.
I see Nicholas's well-trimmed beard here with his fingers right now covering that up. Are we going to be honored to hear just a brief summary from Nicholas tonight?
Actually, we have another parks item right after this. If you have general comments, Nicholas, I think I might wait for that. But if you have specific comments on Quarry Park, please go ahead and let us know what they are.
Wait, does Dan want comments on Quarry Park or my beard?
Well, tell you what. Claire's really all about time. Let's keep this thing moving. So skip the beard. We'll do a separate phone call on that one.
Sounds good, Dan. No, I think Hannah covered it all, and I just want to thank Hannah for her time and for being here and providing, such a detailed report. And so I think she covered everything. So I really don't have anything to add. Hannah, thank you for taking the time to do that.
Well, I appreciate both of you being here, and I'm glad that you're here for the next item as well, since it does involve parks also. This second item on the agenda tonight is regarding a proposed AV kiosk at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, and Michelle is sponsoring that item, so I'll turn it to Michelle.
Thank you, Claire. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and a brief slideshow that I put together kind of summarizing the request and the points in the letter. What I'll do, I'm sure Nicholas or Hannah want to speak on this, so I'll just get to that quickly and give them a chance to speak and introduce the project since it is their project. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the MCC received a planning referral on September 12th for what's described as a standalone solar-powered audiovisual kiosk. We have some specs here located near the top of the Seal Cove stairway in Moss Beach. It would be an AV kiosk in addition to the existing kiosk, which would both have solar panels on the roofs, and it's about 38 feet from the bluff. It will be before the Planning Commission, I believe October 10th, if I have that date right. And it is appealable to the Coastal Commission. These are the images that we received with the referral. There were only three. There was 1B, 2, I think figure 1 was just a map, 1B, 2, and then figure C. So it shows the location. I think where that stick is the proposed location of the new kiosk. And then we also received this image as well. Nicholas, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve is a educational and research facility. And one of the most important tools we as a public agency have to educate the public is actually having the public experience the land. And at the reserve, it's experience the reef and being physically on site and getting to see the different species of marine life. One of the most important things is making sure the public is well informed and educated prior to going down to the beach on what the rules and regulations are, why the rules and regulations are the way they are, and making sure people understand the impacts that we can have by doing things like collect and touching marine life we're not supposed to touch, and making sure we're aware of where we are stepping and walking. And over time, the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve has really seen an increase in popularity and visitors. And what we are seeing is people coming and parking both at the main parking lot and at the Seal Cove area. And for those who park at the Seal Cove area, there is really not a great, what we refer to as a touch point to educate and inform those members of the public of what the rules are and why those are the rules before they head down to the beach. And that's really what sparked the idea of this kiosk. And we the department, were having a conversation with the Friends of Fitzgerald who are on site and really making great observations throughout the day as our park staff. And one of the things we realized is we needed to find a way to better inform and educate the members of the public who are using the Seal Cove stairs so that they're aware of their actions. And this was something that we felt was the best way of going about it. Really, we've seen great success from the TV that's at the main parking lot. I spoke with staff today and they expressed, that groups will stop and watch it, watch the video in the main parking lot, and that people are attracted to that, to watch that and learn before they go to the reef. And replicating that at the Seal Cove side, I think is an important opportunity that we should be pursuing. One of the biggest points I do want to emphasize is the addition of this kiosk is not going to serve as a draw for people to park in the Seal Cove area and use the Seal Cove staircase. We're proposing to do this because people are already doing that. And what we need to do is make sure we're educating these members of the public before they go down. So we really did feel that this was absolutely an appropriate way of doing this. Again, Fitzgerald Marine Reserve is different than some of our other park units like Sam McDonald or Pescadero Creek County Park or Huddard or Wonder. This is a research and education facility, and we should be using every opportunity we can to make sure we are educating the public, and that's really what the spirit and the core of this project is.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas, and yes, thanks for we had a call a couple of days ago, and he explained some of that. Still, I did write this letter last week, and it's really in response to when I first heard about this project, I sent an email to. I live in Seal Cove, and I sent an email to several neighbors in Seal Cove just to get a sense of how they felt about the project. And I heard I received 12 responses, all opposed for various reasons, and I've done my best to summarize that in this letter. I'm not going to read the letter, but I do have a few slides just summarizing the points that are made in the letter, and the letter is available on the MCC website. So first point is that there, as Nicholas mentioned, there already is an existing television at the Ranger Station parking lot. Between myself and my husband, visited it 5 times in the last week. One of the times, which this first picture was taken, it was off. The second time, the metal gate was down. And the third, fourth, and fifth time, it was on, but there was no one there attending. I've walked by there a bunch of times. I've never seen masses of people watching the television, but one of the points I wanted to make in this letter is that it's a 7-minute walk from the Ranger Station to the Seal Cove Stairs. So the majority of visitors to the park are already have the option of digesting this content from the parking lot. You can see in the second picture, there's a full parking lot. This was when the TV was on and no one standing in front of it. It also states, the letter also suggests that funds would be better used toward maintaining the existing television, making sure it's on, and maybe directing people to it or something to get more attention. The second point is that the plan is to include a solar panel, I think, on both the existing little kiosk there as well as the new one. I'm definitely concerned that solar electricity may not be sufficient. As you can see, even on a sunny day, this was taken at like 12:30 in the afternoon. And so most of the location is covered by tree cover, has tree cover. It's very, very shaded. So There is no existing electricity to this area of the park. So if the solar needs are not sufficient, either the TV could be down for much of the time and not functioning, maybe similar to the one at the ranger station, or there could be a need to run electricity, which I calculated it's at least 250 feet to the nearest point of electrical PG&E infrastructure. Also running additional lines if they're above ground would add additional risk due to the proximity to the cypress trees. Don't necessarily think that this is what park visitors want. I did some research. The latest survey that I found, and maybe Nicholas has more recent data, but was a 2004 survey. And the quote from that said that clearly people come to Fitzgerald Marine or Fitzgerald for a personal experience of the real thing in a wild and natural setting. Most notable were the repeated pleas from a majority of visitors to limit development and take low-key approaches to draft interpretation. That was from the plan that the Parks Department prepared. And, you know, I've heard, one of the things I heard a lot from people in the community was that they do go to that part of the reserve to really enjoy the natural beauty and the serenity, and would not want to be distracted by a TV blaring. You know, it also would cause light and noise pollution to visitors and potentially nearby residents. I know it is aimed to face away. I do kind of have concerns that during foggy times, which is like probably half the year here, there would be a bit of a glare from the television, even though it's facing away from the houses. As we've heard, there is, you know, an increase in visitors to the Seal Cove entrance to the Marine Reserve, but there's no infrastructure to support it. There's no dedicated parking lot. There are narrow streets. We also had a meeting with Supervisor Horsley. Neighbors had a meeting with Supervisor Horsley several months ago about issues of people blocking driveways and safety and fire concerns. So adding additional infrastructure or additional attractions to the end of the park without the necessary infrastructure could make the problem worse. And then finally, I just took a bunch of pictures and I counted the number of signs that are already existing right here at the entrance to the park. And this is 3 separate pictures trying to capture all of the signage. There are 20 individual signs. I think maybe we could do a better job trying to consolidate information into maybe a set of signs, you know, a single area of signs. I mean, there are a lot of places to clearly, there's the existing kiosk, the entrance to the steps. You know, there's a lot to communicate. I hear you guys. There's even like the temporary thing up there with additional information. One of the ideas that we actually had and I put in the letter was to use a QR code. I see there's a QR code on this temporary sign. Potentially, you know, everyone visiting the park has phones. Couldn't they just watch a video from their phone by just, you know, taking a picture of a QR code? So I just put that suggestion in the letter. The overall conclusion was that the MCC supports the addition of educational tools for park visitors. However, it needs to be done in a responsible and unobtrusive manner that preserves the park's reason for being, the enjoyment and preservation of nature. So everyone can read the letter in its entirety, but that's pretty much a summary of it. We also did receive 2 public comments via email. Claire, did you want me to read or summarize? I have a couple slides on I just put them on slides if we want to.
If you could present those in whatever way you wish.
Yeah, I know. We said if it's under 300 words, we'll read it. But this is a lot to read, so I'm going to put it up here, this first one, for a minute or so and highlight some of the key points. Just the intro says, a coastal marine reserve is an area set aside to be maintained in its natural state for research, education, and compatible recreation and enjoyment. When use permits are provided to film crews and others, they must leave no sign that they were there and restore the natural habitat. This person says that proposed AV kiosk will forever stain the natural state of the area. They request that we not further degrade the natural state. And that's from Neil and Debbie Murray. And then we also received a second letter from Ron Olson, who's the president of the Friends of Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. He said, my feelings are that the proposed kiosk could replace an existing kiosk at the top of the stairs. The screen would be active during park hours. Current information modalities have proven to be ineffective. Food, ice chest, toys, and an occasional dog have been brought on the beach in spite of signage. It's thought that a screen that is brief and informative may be more effective. It can also be set to present information in several languages. My preference is to have closed captioning with an option for audio. Much of the increased foot traffic to Seal Cove was due to damage of the main beach entrance and the unusually heavy usage of all coastal beaches. So I will stop sharing now. Claire, do you want to moderate this part?
I could. Well, let's go to comments from the communities to start with. I noticed that Nicholas has his hand up. Did you want to comment before we go to the community, Nicholas?
Oh, well, I want to know if the MCC, Michelle, you brought up a number of points. I wanted to know if you wanted clarity on those points beforehand, before the public speaks and the MCC speaks.
Go ahead and provide clarity on anything you think that that you think that needs to be clarified based on what I said.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think looking at kind of the notes that I wrote down here. So, recognizing that it's a 7-minute walk from Seal Cove to the main parking lot. I think one of the hardest things we deal with as a parks agency is trying to recognize human behavior and plan for that. And what we've learned is, and we learned this very clearly during the pandemic, people aren't willing to walk 2 minutes to use a restroom. They'll just use the tree closest to them. So walking 7 minutes to watch the video, I think we can say with clear certainty that, that's not going to be an effective alternative for providing education. And again, for us, the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve is all about education and research and making sure that we have an opportunity to provide an experience that educates the public on what they're about to experience and why it's so important to responsibly enjoy places like the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And I think with regards to the concern about signage, I really think that's the value of this kiosk, is that gives us an opportunity to take a lot of the messages that we're trying to provide that are done in these signs and consolidate. And I think that's something that would assist both with, we'll call it an overabundance of signs, and people really not following what the signs are saying. And with regards to noise and light pollution, the TV, the video would only play during the day, right? So it wouldn't play at night. It wouldn't play early in the morning before operating hours. It wouldn't play late at night. And, I think the best reference point we can have for this is the houses that are near the main parking lot, right? So there are houses by the main parking lot where the existing TV is, which are approximately the same distance. And we've never received a complaint from a neighbor that there's that there's noise pollution or light pollution. So that's one of the reasons why we're very confident with this, is that we have not experienced that, right? So we haven't been told, hey, can you turn the TV off? It's too bright. It's creating too much noise. And so we try to rely on those experiences to inform future decisions. And that's really what we did here. And then lastly, again, I want to reemphasize something that I said earlier. We truly think that the kiosk is needed because of the increase in visitors already going to Seal Cove. The kiosk itself will not increase people going to Seal Cove. So I was part of that meeting you referenced with Supervisor Horsley out at Seal Cove, and I met with the neighbors that day. And that was several months before we even proposed this. And what I heard during that day is there are already people coming and parking and speeding. And so this kiosk would not have would not exacerbate that and would not be a draw for that behavior. That behavior is already happening, and this is really our response to that behavior. So I really think this has an opportunity to help inform the public, not just about the reserve, but give us an opportunity to add information about making sure people are being respectful to the neighboring properties as well. So, you know, we think this is very much provides an opportunity for multiple benefits, which is why we're really excited about it. So I just wanted to kind of put those points out there for the commission to have.
Okay. Thank you, Nicholas. We will be voting on the letter. So here's the process. We'll take comments from the community, 2 minutes each, please. And then we'll take comments then we'll ask for a motion to approve the letter. We'll have discussion among council members, and then we'll vote on the letter. So we'll start with 2 minutes each from members of the community, starting with Sid.
Thank you, Claire. I live in Seal Cove too, and not right next to that part of the park, but I have noticed an increase in parking, not just near the entrance, but way down near the Cypress Flower Farm and the Seal Cove Inn on Cypress Avenue before Airport Street. So I was just wondering, I'm kind of in favor of educating the public, especially after that incident last year when the guy with the dog, you know, knocked out one of the Marine Reserve docents, you know, sent her to the hospital. But it's true that people will just ignore signs too. So I hope that these will educate people, but on the same token, what are you planning to do about increasing parking along that side? Because as it is, when they're parked along the edge of Cypress, their doors are open and cars can't really get by safely. So maybe if you made more of a, I don't know what you call it, side parking area over there, it would help. But again, you can't really tell people how to run their lives and park their cars, but it would be helpful, I think, to have a little bit of information, even if only some of them watch it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Rob Kavanaugh. I'm a neighbor of Michelle's. I live directly across the street from where you're proposing this kiosk. And I am truly opposed to it. Neighborhood concerns, impact. This neighborhood cannot support any additional traffic from attractions on the Seal Cove side of the reserve. There are major parking issues, as we know. We've had the sheriff out to have to call people to get, because you can't get down roads. It's trash. We get a ton of trash every weekend. We're picking up trash. I mean, it's great that you're trying to, you know, educate the public, but, you know, we're the ones who have to pick up the aftermath of the mess. And as we know, the park does not have any infrastructure for parking at all on this end of the coast. This side of the park is not like the other side of the park. The people who come to this side of the park are, majority of them are specifically here to go to the beach. They really don't care about the park. They're here to go to the beach, and they take all their sand toys and their food and everything else and try and get down to the beach. It's terrible. Like I said, the neighborhood has to pick up the aftermath of all this. As far as the kiosk is concerned, it doesn't really fit the reserve atmosphere. I mean, it's you know, a piece of tech that we really don't need down here. Our concerns are the noise, vandalism to the unit because it's not patrolled over here, maintenance costs to keep it upkeep and running, and as Michelle said, it's 100% in the shade here. Solar is not going to work unless you stick a 40-foot pole up in the air and get above the trees. Okay, and then the last point is Yeah, the 21st century proposal that I've got, and that is like Michelle put in a QR system. Put everything on a website and just have a QR code that the visitors can take and download and watch the stuff as they wander through the park.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Johnson, 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. I'm on my phone and I'm not used to it, so it took me a while to get there. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I support the letter, the MCC's letter. I hope they vote to approve that letter. I agree with Mr. Kavanaugh and others. It's, in my opinion, out of character with the outdoor experience. And writing a letter not supporting it is consistent with other actions that the community has expressed and the MCC has taken, such as the digital signage that Caltrans has wanted to be putting along Highway 1. Again, we have a coastal character here, and not everything has to be teched up. I would ask, what exactly prompted this? Was there research? Was there data? Was there like a bevy of public input saying we need electronic signage, we need tech in here? And I've heard Nicholas and other people say, well, people aren't following the signs that are there. Well, what exactly is an electronic screen? How is that going to change people's behavior? I mean, if they're not following the rules by showing it on an electronic screen, that's somehow going to change people's behavior? I don't think so. And I just really question why this has been proposed. I'm curious, was there some kind of grant that was awarded and that's why this is appearing? It just doesn't seem necessary, seems kind of out of the blue. And I again ask, I say again, it's out of character. And what prompted this? Why is this coming up right now? I'm not inferring any kind of conspiracy. I'm just saying, what is the reason? Thank you, Claire. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Steve, please.
Yes, I echo a lot of the same sentiments that were just expressed by Chris. This is really a sacred area. And as soon as you cross the trail from the pavement, it's a trail. It's a sacred area. So when you have the area that's parking where the existing kiosk is, that's sufficient. So why do we need to expand into the sanctuary and put electronics in that sanctuary that is already existing? It's beautiful. It's a wonderful experience, but also it's going to affect the parking. I mean, we live right in that area. We're in Seal Cove, and we already have parking issues that are not being enforced. So if there's an emergency, somebody has a life issue, there's parking fire lanes that are not being enforced. People cannot get out of their areas, out of their residence. And I just see it as being more of a deterrent or a problem with more congestion. And it's just, I don't understand why it's being proposed, because again, it's a natural experience and let's keep it that way. Why do we need to put electronics right above the stairs in a beautiful reserve when we already have a kiosk with a parking lot, with restrooms on the other side? Let them experience it, let them walk through and enjoy it. Why put this in our sanctuary?
Okay. Thank you, Larry. Janet.
Hi, I'm here with my husband, Arish. So we are part of the Seal Cove community and can personally attest to the issue of vandalism and graffiti, as well as people using the bathroom on our property, and as well as parking along the ridge near our property. So I think these issues we would throw our support behind. Also, we've watched people just blatantly ignore the existing signage. And so we'll I think the goal of this is really valuable. I'm just worried that we're not going to accomplish that and have steep costs in an attempt to do so.
Thank you. Larry.
Hi, my name's Larry Baker. I live about 2 blocks away from the Seal Cove entrance to the park. And I agree with a lot of what's been said already, including Steve's characterization of it being a sanctuary. You know, when I go to a symphony or I go to a play or something like that, at the beginning, we're asked to turn off our cell phones. And that's the kind of experience that I think I want to avoid when I go into the park. Noise pollution really bothers me. I think it's perfectly adequate to have visual signage. I think the issue Nicholas was talking about they're trying to deal with, or at least that raised the concern for them, was really people's misbehavior in mistreating the resources that are there. But the education and the research aspect of what they want to encourage, I think is better handled over at the Ranger Hut, where they have the right kind of facilities for that, including somebody staffing it to talk to people about it. Once you enter the sanctuary, the park, I think it should be a natural experience. And I object to visual clutter. I think at the top of the Seal Cove stairs right now is really not the way a natural park should look, including down the stairs. There's more of those signs propped up with road signs. But I want it to be quiet. I want to hear nature. I want to hear the ocean. And I don't even like hearing people talking on their cell phones. I find it annoying. It's the wrong place to be doing stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Diana.
Hi there, I'm about 2 blocks from the park as well. And I am just baffled as well as to I understand what you're saying, Nicholas, about providing the information. It would look sleek. It would be one big sign, it sounds like, versus what, we're looking at, like maybe 20. But again, I'm with the rest of the neighbors on this. Technology doesn't belong in there. I also have issues with the curation of that content, what that content would be, who would be responsible for it in the years to come, the technology that's being purchased with it, and all of those kinds of questions with regard to what would be on that technology. Would there be, when somebody Googled to find the entrance to the park, would it be a locator for that on Google Maps? You're saying we do have, and as you said earlier, Nicholas, yeah, we've already complained about the fact that we get so much traffic through here and people parking and behaving badly. We couldn't even get that addressed. And I just don't understand how something that could be what I consider to be a little frivolous, jumping ahead in the queue of resolving the community issues we've already brought up. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Patrick.
Hi, this is Patrick Reichenberger. I live about 100 yards away from that part of the park. And I think that there's a huge assumption that's being made, and that is that a kiosk will decrease the undesired behavior. And I don't know that that's true. And the expense in terms of not just financial, but in terms of the experience that you gain from being in the park is the price that's paid for something that you don't know is going to work. When you're there to experience nature, it's not just, you feel it, you hear it, you taste it, you sense it. You want to wrap yourself in it. And having something that creates motion by a screen that moves or noise and some audio, and there are all kinds of considerations with regards to language, length of time, the decibel factor, and so on and so forth. But even standing right next to it, if somebody's there watching a bird, they want to hear the bird, and then this thing goes off, please remember to not da-da-da-da-da-da-da. it just ruins the whole feel of it. And I don't know that it's necessary. Now, if you had data that showed somehow that these kiosks do reduce undesired behavior, then maybe it's worthy of some more attention. But I think if you really want to limit the undesired behavior, you should have the rangers patrol more often, or some such thing where there's a face-to-face interaction or dissuasion for people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. Kimberly.
Thank you, Claire. This is Kimberly Williams, a member of the community, and I fully support the letter that Michelle went through earlier. I cannot support this sign in this location or anywhere else in this park. And for all the reasons that were mentioned by Chris Johnson and others, I won't rehash those, but I think urban style interfaces in a natural space tend to encourage urban behaviors and not the opposite. And frankly, Mr. Calderon, I think someone who urinates on a tree in a marine reserve is likely not to take the time to view this kind of proposed sign anyway. That was a very strange analogy. And education is important, definitely. But I think that education does belong down in the parking lot at the ranger station, and this money would be better used to support and bring in more park staff to address the issues that are more important for us right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all the public comment that I see. I'd like to move to ask someone to make a motion to approve the letter so that we can move to the council for discussion.
I move we adopt Michelle's letter as written.
Is there a second?
Well, if you're going to take Greg as the motion, then I'll second.
Okay, fine. Good. So I'd like each council member to try to stick to about 2 minutes as well, because we're way over at this point. We start with Dave.
So I'm strongly opposed to this. Among other things, I don't think it would be successful for the goals that have been stated. I am not at all in favor of the noise pollution that would go with this, as many others have said. I want to hear the ocean and the animals. I do not want to hear a video screen. I don't want to see video screen movement out of the corner of my eye. I suspect it would be vandalized relatively quickly, no matter what you do. Video screens aren't going to help any of the enforcement problems, violation problems we have. We have a video screen down at the Ranger Center near the main parking lot, and every day we see violations there. Video screen does not help that at all. Giving rangers enforcement powers, which today they do not have, having more rangers, which MCC has suggested on many occasions and has offered to help fight for more budget with the board to get those rangers. Those will help solve the problem. Docents are not the solution to this problem. And even if they were, after what happened to one of the folks who was a close friend, if I was a docent, I'd be very leery about talking. This is absolutely, totally the wrong solution. I am astounded it was suggested, and it's just wrong.
Thank you. Dan, 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, hey, Nicholas, I think you did a very good job of, with the sales pitch. And I gotta agree with you 100%. Education is important, but I agree with everybody else. I don't think that the electronic audio is the solution. We can upgrade written education at the ranger station, take down whatever signs that are not needed currently. I totally agree with Michelle, Chris Johnson. the sanctuary concept. Try not to overmanage the whole education process. Keep it simple, non-audible. Have it right there at the ranger station. The actual nature is the real draw. You said something about response to speeding. I didn't understand how this could help that. Clearly that, there's going to be a cost for this. And I think that the money available for the cost of this could be better used in other ways, as some of the other commenters mentioned earlier. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Jill?
Thank you, Nicholas, for your presentation. I have a couple questions. How large is the television? And what's my second question? Well, how large is the television that you're proposing?
And just to confirm, Claire, this is the time you want me to answer questions from the commission, correct?
Since she's asking you a direct question, that would be helpful. Okay. Yes, please.
Yeah. So the kiosk itself is going to be 54 inches wide. So that kind of gives you a sense. The TV itself will, probably be, I believe it's a 48 inch screen is what I believe it is.
Okay. And shoot, I forgot my second question. I support your wanting to educate visitors to the park and even locals. I think that's a great idea. I'm not sure this is the route to take, and I just don't know. Can you tell us what the total cost of this kiosk would be?
Jill, I don't have that figure on me right now.
Okay. Thank you, Nicholas.
Of course.
Okay. Thank you, Jill. Len?
Yes. I'm agreeing with the overall sentiment to not move ahead with this project in this location. But as Jill mentioned, I think trying to look at how the education experience for the many visitors we get, especially younger students, should be looked at. The question I have is whether the funds you have could be used to make a really good short quality video on Fitzgerald Marine that would emphasize both the experience you get there, as well as certain educational pieces that you might like to inform people about. And I think this could be very effective. It could both be in your website and used for students to look at before they come there. You'd need the right group to do it, but I think that would be an excellent use of the funds. That would allow a QR code for those with phones to use it, as Michelle has suggested. And I guess that following up on what Jill asked, would this type of application of the funds be possible?
Len, that video already exists. That's the video that shows at the main parking lot. That's the video that would show at this kiosk. So that video already exists. I do want to say school groups, targeting school groups, typically they show up to have a tour. So they're receiving ongoing education from a docent. So this wouldn't be as applicable to them as much as those families and individuals showing up on a weekend or during the summer looking to experience FMR.
Yeah. And just one last question: is that video actually linked within within your website, so a person seeing information there would see the video, could see it?
I know we are in the middle of updating some of our website content. So I don't know if that video itself is on the is on the website. I know we do have, let me see here. Yes, it is. Sorry, I was just on the website right now.
Thank you.
Greg.
Well, I'm glad to see I'm not the only old guy who likes not having the cell phones on when you're walking in nature. So I completely support that. But I even have an answer to one of the questions Nicholas was asked. I think the QR code's a great idea. You still have to moderate content, whether you do a kiosk or a TV or a QR code. So that's not going to change. But the risks of perpetual maintenance and replenishment of the assets you're putting in place would be reduced to virtually zero. And I was going to mention putting the money into enforcement, but Kimberly Williams stole my idea. So I will merely say, good idea, Kimberly. And here's the answer to the question, how much that would cost. It would cost an infinite amount, because even a Memorial Park bench, if it is perpetual, is going to cost an infinite amount to keep in place. So I'm saying, let's put our assets somewhere else where there are better uses. Enforcement, of course, to me would be a great thing. And I support the community. It's pretty clear the community feels strongly on this. Thank you.
Michelle, do you want to make any final comments, or should we call for a vote?
I guess my only last question is to Nicholas, and given the strong sentiment against this project tonight, if this letter is approved, what are your plans?
Yeah, I think we'll have to go back and assess. I don't think I'm prepared to say we're going to stop this project, and I'm not prepared to say we're going to carry it through. I mean, I think we have to really look at that again. What we're looking to accomplish and what I heard today, I don't necessarily think they are. A lot of things I heard today are not issues related to the kiosk, in my opinion. Again, the Seal Cove neighborhood is already inundated with people, and this kiosk is not going to make the neighborhood inundated, right? That's already happening. We have a legal obligation to do what we can to educate the public, and so again, I'm not at this point ready to say that this kiosk is not the answer. I'm also not willing to say we are 100% full steam ahead. So I think we need to go back and probably have some conversations and do some assessing before I can make that determination.
Okay. Well, if it does go to the Planning Commission, they will receive a copy of our letter, and I hope many of the people who spoke here tonight will also speak there. Hopefully you will come to your senses and withdraw it, but it doesn't seem right to push forward with something even though almost everyone in the community is opposed. That's the last thing I'll say.
Okay, so Dan, could you call the roll on the issue that's on the table at the moment, which is the approval of the letter as written?
Well, I think the discussion's still open. I wanted to ask Nicholas just a very quick question. Nicholas, is there a shortage? Are you having difficulty finding docents?
Dan, we don't run the docent program. That's run by the Friends of Fitzgerald, which is an independent nonprofit. So that would be a question in regards to Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. That would be a question specifically for them.
Okay, thank you. All right, so honoring Claire's request, I'll go ahead and count the vote. So Claire.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Len.
Yes.
Jill.
I'm going to abstain. I'm not sure.
Dave.
Yes.
And I am a yes. So we have 6 on the yes and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. So it passes. I really appreciate the people from Parks being here tonight and listening to us and sharing your perspective. I hope you understand that we are very much in favor of people being educated. We just would like to find a different way to do it. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Claire.
The final item on the agenda tonight is regarding Cypress Point housing development. If you recall, at our last meeting, we generated a list of concerns that were supplied by the community and by the council that we thought we wanted to address in a letter to the planner and secondarily to other agencies like Board of Supervisors and Coastal Commission. We did a fair amount of work on this, trying to put the items that everybody thought were important into a single letter. You've had the letter available to you for just a couple of days. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. I don't anticipate that we will be voting on the letter tonight, although if we do, I'll be thrilled. But I would like to have people take a look at the letter and make comments as to where they feel like we're on the mark and where you feel like we may still need to do a little more work. Can we put the letter up?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks. I don't want to read through the letter, but if people could refer to it while they're thinking.
Keep going, I'll find it.
Okay, well, I don't have, what?
While we do this, just my reference was to the item I had as well.
Yeah.
Aren't they in the same vein? You're really, I didn't read this with an expectation to vote tonight.
No.
And I assume you have a process for taking comments on this letter after tonight's meeting and before our next meeting.
Yeah, what it said in the agenda was words to the effect of we would work toward the approval of a letter. I don't really expect that tonight. I'm really asking, and the other people who are in this group, Dave and Greg, I think are asking for people to just take a look at it, even if you're just looking at it for the first time right now, and say, yes, this looks good. No, you really left out this important part. Just give us some feedback so we can put it together well enough to bring it back for approval next time.
Thank you.
Maybe since everybody does seem to be just reading it now, I should just go through each paragraph briefly. The first paragraph, we're basically saying that this has been an area of concern since the very beginning, that people generally recognize the need for affordable housing, but there are major impacts of this project on the current situation that we think that need further thought and consideration. The first section, maybe Dave, you want to talk to that just a little bit? The first section is about traffic safety and related issues.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following this project since before it started. From the very first time I talked about this, long before the first open house and at every open house, I've told them that if the main access is going to be at Carlos Street, they have to deal with the safety problems there. And to date, they have not. And in fact, they have done relatively few updates to the traffic study. The updates they did do covered some of the stuff in Connect the Coast side. And they commented all but saying so that they did not see a way to make the intersection safe. They did not literally say that. Let me be very clear, but they came very close to saying it. So to me, that's always been the number one problem. Whether it's not using that intersection intersection, moves teeth, making massive improvements there. Something needs to be done there. They can't just say, well, yeah, it's a problem, we're going ahead. And that's true of both vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists, of course.
That we also notice here that the speed limits are inconsistent, and we're advocating for a lowered speed limit to improve safety. We also note that there will be intersection control studies for the Etheldor and Carlos, and probably California, that should be, intersections with Highway 1. And we would like those done quickly, and the Mid-Penn should at least partially fund them. Then there's a section here about evacuation and how important that has been to the community as an issue. Can we bring that down a little bit further? Okay. Then there's the next section talks about ways that everyday vehicular and pedestrian traffic is affected in Moss Beach in general. It again references the ICE studies that are proposed. We don't want them to put it in traffic lights as a knee-jerk reaction to any studies without looking at all the different options that might actually be effective at those intersections. We're noticing that many residents do not want sidewalks. And we also noticed that crossings of Highway 1 are not specifically mentioned, but must be addressed. We are asking that Mid-Penn provide 100% of the funding to design a trail to provide a safe route to school from the project to the local school, and that the development of a trail parallel to Highway 1 between Moss Beach and El Granada be accelerated. Then we address the topic of downtown Moss Beach and its many amenities, and say that they are not in reality as robust as the application suggests. We ask that Samtrans and Mid-Penn collaborate, provide some imaginative alternatives to existing transit options. We ask that on-site mailboxes be provided with mail delivery to minimize trips outside of the project. We also ask for more EV charging facilities. We also picked up on something that somebody mentioned at the last meeting about the Moss Beach Fire Station, which is due for renovation on a very small lot on a very small street, and proposed that they consider relocating the station to the Cypress Point property to improve general safety and transportation patterns. Then there's a section on infrastructure, and I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Greg. But we're definitely asking for in-depth studies to ensure that there's an adequate supply of everything that's needed, and that mitigating risks from any deficiencies should be a priority.
I have a lot to say, Claire, but I'll wait till you're done.
Okay. And then there's the issues about environment, including the fact that the biological resources document is blank. And there will be an EIR, so we're looking forward to working on that. There's a section on stormwater drainage. There's a section on fill. And there's a section on the undeveloped open space being preserved for public access. There's a section on prioritizing local people for residency in the apartments. And then there's a section asking that funds be placed in escrow to mitigate against any problems that come up after the construction gets started or after it's finished due to the project. So that's a really gross summary of everything that's in here. There's a lot in here. And I think I'll just ask for people's comments, starting with the community and then going to the council. Is there anything that jumps out at people saying, oh, you really hit this nail on the head, or you completely missed the boat? Lena?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to add something you may already know, but I was talking to the supervisor today and he brought it up. So we've heard from MidPenn that 75% of the units will be made specifically available for people who are already living and working on the coast. And then he told me that 49% will be allocated for people, I think 49, that sounds bigger than I was remembering, but for farm workers specifically. So I know I have the 75 in documentation and I'll share that with y'all. And also just want to let you know that he is very committed to the traffic mitigation and is asking for the county to support that financially as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That doesn't sound quite right, but we can find out all the details, I guess. 2 minutes, please. Larry Baker.
Hi, I live in Seal Cove, and as you probably know, about the only way that we get in and out of here is Cypress, where it dumps out onto Highway 1, and they are going to be working on some of that. I was pleased to see in the letter, so I want to give you kudos for the proposal to reduce the speed limit. I wish there was a way to coordinate everything between Half Moon Bay and Devil's Slide. I think there's no reason any of that should be faster than 45 miles an hour the entire way. I think it's absurd that it's 50 miles an hour through residential areas, El Granada and Moss Beach, and 55 through the Brussels sprouts fields. There's just way too many people crossing the highway, bicyclists on basically, unimproved corridors. 45 is more than adequate to pass through this area. So I want to just appreciate very much your words there.
Okay. Thank you. Sid, 2 minutes, please.
Oh, thanks. I was still gathering my thoughts, but one of the things I tried to look up is the reports that I read all mentioned storm drainage, like there was some kind of municipal storm drains, but I went over to Carlos Street and the only storm drain that is actually embedded in the street with a grate over it is at the corner of Sierra and Carlos. But all the way from that intersection down to the highway, there's nothing but a drainage ditch. Now, maybe the county considers those storm drain systems, but I don't, because as we have seen many times, they become overflowing with mud and debris, or even if there is some kind of a drainage grate, those sometimes get covered up and don't get maintained before the rainy season starts. So my main concern is just that all this extra water is going to be, because there's a lot of impervious surface.
So Sid, there's a whole separate stormwater drain system for this project that leads from the project all the way directly into the creek.
I'm just hoping that you will stop interrupting because I had the floor, Dave. Now I've lost track of my train of thought. So Claire, I'd like a few more minutes or one more brief moment. So they only have 3 retention ponds. There's quite a bit of storm drainage and hydromortification they talk about in the report, but it all eventually flows into the creek, which flows into the marine reserve, and I'm not in favor of that environmentally. I think they should have, just like Quarry Park, they should have some catch basins on the property and not be sending it down onto the highway. And the other thing is, I just think the transportation there is going to be a nightmare. There's no way for that whole community to get in and out to go shopping or take their kids to school or go to work without a traffic jam. And, they need social justice, just like people in, places like East Palo Alto. There just isn't I don't think that Midpen is taking into consideration that there's no school buses out here. So that's another thing. But I guess my main thing is just the fact that it's ill-planned and there's going to be traffic overflow parking as well. And I really think they ought to take the take the bull by the horns and try to get some off-site parking set up in advance if they're going to have this 71 units.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Chris, 2 minutes, please.
Sorry, my ham hands don't work on the phone that well. I mean, as with Dave, I've been involved with this, or not involved, but following this project, both on the MCC before it was even officially a project. And generally, I've been opposed to this project the whole time. And I would say with regard to this letter, yeah, it's a good letter. But to me, the amount, and it points out some excellent issues. And to me, the length of this letter and the detail of the issues says all, I guess, needs to be said to me at the higher level, which is that there's just too many things to deal with here. This reminds me a lot of the Big Wave project, another project that came through while I was on the MCC. That thing was, and I am not exaggerating, that thing was ushered through, held by the hand by the county to make sure that that passed, with all kinds of problems. Design review issues, environmental impact report problems, traffic mitigation issues. But yeah, we'll take care of that. That's fine. The developer will be responsible for that. I asked, how many times has the Big Wave project development plan changed over the years? And what is it now? I don't know. It's changed so many times. The fact that there are so many outstanding issues with this that we are supposed to accept, like, yeah, they'll address some of them. Maybe a few of the issues the FCC has pointed out will be addressed, but not enough. And there's so many here. And even Dave pointed out, it starts with the traffic situation. You want me to be in favor of this project? Solve these traffic issues first. Do all of the public works that the rest of the people that are in that area and using the coast side, including the people that might live there, would benefit from. Do all of that first. And when that's ready, okay, then let's talk about putting a 71 unit project in there. Okay, thanks, Claire.
Dolores. Dolores, go ahead.
Sorry, I always forget how to unmute. Well, I think that Chris is on the right track. I appreciate that you took a lot of effort in this letter, but fundamentally, this project is too large for the infrastructure, so they have to fix the infrastructure first. Secondly, the traffic, they told me from day one, as I started off, the first time Midpen had a meeting, they got me into this little corner, and I said, if you can't, first you need to fix the traffic. If you can't fix that, what's the point of talking? And they said, well, we can't fix the traffic. Well, then, then this doesn't make sense. This was my view, and it still is. And third, I don't see anything in your letter that attracts the big question that a lot of us have that live here. There are potentially toxic materials here that they will not look at. They don't look at, right now, I believe the main reason they don't talk about the traffic like they were at one time is because if they get to the highway, then it goes back to the Coastal Commission because you get into the coastal zone. They're trying to avoid going back to the Coastal Commission. They want it to be just approved at the Planning Commission. They have never looked for asbestos. Why? Because every borrowing form that you have to fill out asks if there is asbestos. Well, if they don't look for it, they can't find it. So they always say no. And then the fact that we believe that it's just too large, they've never proven that it's not, because look at Carlo Street on its own. I mean, your letter doesn't address Carter Street at all. And I thought that was one of Len's points last time. So I'm going to talk about your letter. It's going to take me a little longer. I hope you can bear with me. But for example, this point about reducing the miles per hour, we've been asking for that forever. Even without Cypress Point, we need to do that. I don't see why it's in your letter, because it's, you know, it's been part of all the traffic mobility studies, whatever, that the traffic needs, the speed needs to be reduced to something more reasonable, just generally. It doesn't belong in Cypress Point. It's odd for you to, on your statement about evacuation, you talk about evacuation in one sentence and then you jump to the emergency access from Lincoln. You never explained that you're talking about evacuation of the whole area, of the whole mid-coast, because we have this one road in and out. You never mentioned the one road in and out. I think that's a problem here. Then you talk about post office boxes and EV charging stations. Why? You know, I mean, I'm not saying that they don't need to do that, but why in this letter? And then to mention this thing about a fire station is totally weird. That's never come up. Why are you, that's not anything that the community is asking about. I mean, I was thinking about, somebody put that in maybe next door or something. And I mentioned it, I think last time, because I was saying if it was not going to be, let's say they found that it's too expensive or it's impossible to solve the traffic, then as an alternative, maybe this is where the community park, the community center could be, and maybe the fire station, but not in combination with this. This doesn't make sense at all to me. And then this mention about the already strained infrastructure. I mean, that's just totally inadequate. You have to give real points because they're not, you don't really say much in particular other than, yeah, that's a very broad area of concern. But it is a lot more specific if you can get into some details. And let's see. Oh, and then you talk about use of fill and maybe moving this at night. What about all the truckloads that are going to be going out? And I know Dave said that there weren't any, but there were like 875 truckloads that I saw of stuff like all the building materials that's here that have to be removed. They're going to be taken out. You're going to try to get those out at night? I mean, that doesn't make sense. It's just too much for this neighborhood. So, yeah, it's a good letter in some ways, but it's a mishmash of things. I mean, I think it's a good effort. It needs some more work. Thank you very much.
Dolores, I know that you've been helping us with your experiences and thoughts, and I let you go on a little bit longer because I thought you had stuff that you specifically wanted to add. I would welcome any more correspondence you want to have with the people writing the letter, if and that's true for everybody. Okay. So thank you.
All right.
Anne? Anne?
I asked her to unmute. She seems to either have been walked away or she's having problems. Maybe we can come back later.
Okay, let's go to the council. Specifically, what I would like to hear are, as I said before, things that were left out, things that you think are on target, just basically giving direction to what you think an approvable letter should sound like. And I'll start with Len.
Thank you. As I had mentioned to the three letter writers, I've been focusing directly on complete streets as a national program initiative, how Caltrans interprets it, how the county interprets it. And I believe it can be very specific on how it applies to many of the points brought up here, and in particular, why some of them just can't be met. So we'll have that ready to circulate within a couple of days. But it basically, when you look at, if you look at the way the transportation projects are defined, both by Caltrans and the county, and then the nature of the road problems, especially Carlos itself, and the intersections on Highway 1. I just don't see how it comes together as something that can get completed in any reasonable time frame or cost frame. So I'll try to put that down in a separate email I'll send in support.
Okay. Greg?
Well, what I would like to do with this letter is going to depend on the council members who did not participate in drafting it. Just so you know, Gus worked till 5:30 one morning, putting out a draft of this 3.5-page letter that was 10 pages long. And it included a lot of substantiation for a lot of points that are in the letter and some that are not. I feel the letter is poorer for the lack of detail, but Dave and Claire can speak to why they felt it necessary to condense it. I also wanted to present that letter to the council as an alternative so you could make your own decision about what you wanted to include. And Dave and Claire can explain why they did not want me to do that. So I'm prepared to base my vote on what the rest of the council members think. I certainly think this is better than nothing. It's in general, although mildly stated and not substantiated well, the opinion of the community. And I don't want to not be a team player and not go along. But I would like to see the much larger letter worked on and improved rather than this one. And I'd like to embed some of the stuff that Jill has always told us about, ask questions, and then the whole concept of accountability needs to, I think, be brought forward on every single point we're asking for. Who's going to make sure this happens? You know, it's referred to in this letter. It's not like it's ignored, but I mean, I just think the wording would be a lot tougher. And, you know, if you read my articles, I'm a footnote kind of guy. I would do a much longer, more thorough and more pointed letter than what this is. So it's up to Dan and Michelle and Len and Jill. If they think this letter's okay, well, you know, I'll go along with it. But if they think it should be lengthened and strengthened, then I'm all in favor of that. And I propose we start with the draft that Gus finished.
Okay, Ann's back, and Ann, can you let us know what you wanted to add?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. Sorry about that. I couldn't get through the other time. I was concerned too about two things. First was there was no mention of the endangered species that was identified around the project, and that could really make a difference of just what type of road improvements can be made. And I think that they should further investigate the property itself to make sure that this endangered species is not present. They really haven't done that. Also, I'm also very concerned that the county just doesn't seem concerned whatsoever about the potential lead in the soil at the airport, because this is where the major source of our water comes from, in the wells there. And so that does impact this project and certainly impacts all of the residents. I think it's extraordinarily important to have that covered as well. So thank you.
If you note, the environmental impact report is yet to be done. That's very important. They have been delinquent in what environmental information they should have provided already. So that's where that stands.
Yeah, can I jump in? So, and specifically the biological analysis document was not turned in. We don't know what happened. We've asked about it twice over the last month and a half. Have yet see the biological now. So that would cover things like red-legged frog and the like.
You know, just building on what Greg said a minute ago, it's going to be hard for the other people on the council to say, we like Gus's draft, not having seen Gus's draft, and we did not want you to bring in Gus's draft because I personally don't like the precedent of having extra letters presented at the meeting as alternatives. It's really better to consider one letter at a time.
A clarification question.
It may very well be that there will be opinions saying we would like more detail, we would like more specificity, and that may be what the sense of the council is. That doesn't necessarily mean that we use the exact details that might have been in some other draft of the letter. But let me get a sense as to what people are thinking. I'm probably totally confused at this point.
Yes. A question?
Yeah.
I don't understand. So this is you're the committee that drafted this, pulled things together, done this letter. I don't see what the issue is with, let's say, as I said, I plan to send in a letter. Gus isn't on the MCC yet. He plans to, and other people have done it. And so do the three of you feel there's a problem with that happening?
No, not at all. No, I think it's going to happen that many people are going to send in their own letters because we're not going to come up with something that covers everything that everybody wants to say. And I would strongly encourage people to send in their own letters. That's not the issue.
Okay.
Send them where, Claire? Where are we sending them to?
To the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you.
But what we were tasked with doing is responding to a referral from the Planning Commission for specific comments on the specific application that was sent to us. So we were somewhat constrained, and perhaps we went outside those boundaries a little bit, as Dolores was saying. But we were specifically constrained to commenting on exactly what we were asked to comment on. And there are undoubtedly many things that need to be said beyond that. And I hope that people will say them on their own and strongly. Let me ask for other people's comments from Jill, you have some comments to make on the draft letter.
No, I do not have additional comments, and I thank everyone for their work on this letter.
I have my hand up, Claire, and it's been up for a while.
I know it's been, Dan, I was going one at a time. I think I'm going to go to, I'll go to you.
Len speak before me. My hand was up before Len.
I said I'm going to go around the council and call on people. I'm not going to stand right now.
I get it.
But
the rest of us are waiting to be called on.
What?
I mean, the rest of us are waiting, and we know we're going to get a chance to speak. I don't think council members need to put their hands up at this point.
Michelle, why don't you go ahead? Why don't you go ahead, Michelle? And we'll go to Dan.
Yeah. My thoughts are, to be honest, I haven't had the time that I would really like to dedicate to this week because I was working on the Seal Cove kiosk letter. I think just from my quick read, it's a really good letter. It highlights a bunch of different points that were covered at the last meeting. I really would like to see Gus's letter. I think I understand where you're coming from, Claire, with not wanting to have two competing letters to consider, but considering that we don't need to make a decision.
Can I interrupt, Michelle? There is no separate letter. Gus took some really raw stuff, turned it into a letter with some appendices, and then we turned it into a letter. So it's not like there's a separate letter from Gus.
What's being referred to is a fair amount of detail.
Point of order. Gus is not on the MCC right now.
That's correct. So what we're referring to is the original draft letter had a lot of appendices attached to it. We took out the appendices and tried to incorporate the gist of them into the letter, but we left out a lot of the detail that was in the appendices.
Okay, well, appreciate that context. I do think that I would like to see it. I don't know if it's possible to post it to the website so that the public can see as well. But it does sound at least like an interesting document that we could use for backup. So it wouldn't need to be a separate letter. It could potentially be supporting data for a letter that's brought forward. So I would like to see it if there's a way that that's possible. I don't feel ready to vote on this letter tonight. So I would like more time to consider it, to read the other backup data if it's made available, and to have just more, a little more time to consider.
Well, point of order, is there some reason we can't send out the letter draft that Gus did?
Yes, it's not on the MCC.
I'd like to see it.
Let's consider it.
Wait, can we finish? Sorry, Claire, I'm interrupting.
Go ahead.
Can we finish this first round, which is the rest of Michelle and then Dan, and then the three of us can come back and address those questions?
I'm finished.
Okay, Dan?
Yes, thank you, Claire. I want to say that I agree with, for the most part, of all of Dolores's comments. One issue I have is the concept of the whole speed limit. Although I am not against the idea of exploring lowering the speed limit a little bit, but we have to understand, the whole community needs to understand, everybody that uses Highway 1 as an artery to move up and down the coast needs to understand, if that artery does not flow, we're going to have gridlock, and it will just get worse and worse. You've all heard my, suggestions to explore more and more of pedestrian underpasses wherever they're possible. The concept of lowering the speed limit with the addition of adding push buttons that actually stop traffic 100%. We're walking into a gridlock situation. So, I've been on the highway so many times, been here 34 years. I've been on the highway so many times where there is a good flow of now traffic, large platoons, large groups of cars moving fast, getting out of your way. The sooner they get out of your way, the sooner they're not in your way. So we have to understand that we have to really, respect the importance of having this highway flowing. So the concept of lowering the speed will definitely have an impact on gridlock.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
I'm not done, Claire.
I think you might be. That took you a couple of minutes. Do you have something that you can say?
Wait. Are you telling me I can't speak anymore, Claire?
For right now, yes. Okay. Yes.
You know what, Claire? I got a problem with the controlling of all of the communication in this meeting. Go ahead. You know what? For right now, I'm done, and I'm gonna bring it up. You know what?
Okay.
I'm gonna shut down because I'm so pissed off at your attitude, Claire.
Okay. So the proposal was to go back to the people who worked on the letter and try to address what was brought up and try to explain and have some dialogue about what to do next. Greg and Dave, do you want to start with that? Either of you?
Well, I don't think I've heard a substantial number of changes. Some of the things seem to be misreading, like discussions of night construction traffic. There's nothing about that in the letter. Some of the things that got added, like the speed limit and the post office boxes on site and the fire station on site, were sort of brainstorming things that we had in the letter writing process based on what was said at the last meeting. I personally don't have strong feelings about any of them, but lowering the speed limit. But, you know, if lowering the speed limit is a battle in this council, then I'm fine with taking it out because it could be fought as a separate battle. On the issue of presenting, I'm not going to call it the letter. On presenting an earlier draft of what we have right now, yes, of course we can do it. It's incredibly raw. Gus did, and I'm looking forward to seeing him on the council because Gus did an absolutely incredible job of pulling together a melange of bullet points and paragraphs and sort of random thoughts into something that was a pretty coherent letter. So if people really want to see it, yes, we can mail it out. But it's still pretty raw. So if Michelle or anybody else wants to see it, yes, of course, we can mail it out. I don't want to post it on the website because it would cause a lot of confusion.
Why is that?
Why is that? Because people will look at it and they'll go, but I don't like this in the letter, and we'll never know which letter they're talking about. Even if we write big, you know, early draft all over it, people will do that. I've seen that over and over again. But if somebody on the council demands that, then we'll do that.
And with all respect to Gus's work, he is not on the MCC at this moment.
Dan, that's irrelevant. He was acting as an editor for us.
Yes, he was a member of the subcommittee, and we were glad to have him. The fact he's not on the MCC, he will be on the MCC, and I don't see the point of why it hurts to have him involved. Remember, Steve Terry helped us out.
I acknowledge he's a community member. I got that.
He basically wrote down what we said and made it sound like it made sense, which it didn't before he started working on it.
Well, he had some of his own contributions. Don't forget those.
It still has to go through the MCC process, and I guess
it is.
That's what this meeting is doing, Dan.
And we probably shouldn't refer to it as Gus's letter.
That's why I'm going to just call it.
It was a previous draft.
I'll take credit for all the stuff that got cut out.
I'll call it early draft A.
It was actually an early draft F, I think.
Okay, we'll go with F.
I'm okay with sending out the original early draft A if people really do want to see it. I think the bone of contention really is how much detail to go into regarding infrastructure issues. And one of the issues that we were trying to hash out among us was to what degree are we trying to respond to the application for the project, and to what degree are we trying to represent what might be our vision of the overall governance issues for the House side. Lynn? Lynn, you're muted.
So, Claire, it was on July 21st when Michael Schaller forwarded this to us as a referral.
Yes.
What did making that referral do with respect to where you're sending this letter you're developing? You said to the Planning Commission directly. Does it go to the planner?
It goes to the planner, who presents it to the Planning Commission.
But we are sending a copy to Eric at the Coastal Commission and the Planning Commission directly.
Okay.
Is there a deadline?
Now, the second question is, Claire, given you send this letter, if I understand the process and the Brown Act correctly, if, for example, I want to send another letter myself, I'm free to do that. I can't talk to the three of you nor to Gus because you represent a communication loop on this letter, but there's no reason why any other council member can't express a particular view and send that as well. And I don't see that as even being harmful to what you're doing. So
I think it's a wonderful idea.
I'm supportive of your letter and planning to do it. It's just, until I send it, there won't be any discussion of it with other council people.
I 100% agree with you, Len. I think it's the absolute right thing to do.
That's my comment then.
Okay. Okay, so I don't want to belabor this any further. If anybody would like to see the earlier draft, I know Michelle does. I don't know if anybody else does. We can send it and take up everything that people said today and try to rework something that can be passed next time.
So I would like to ask the council members, and not specifically the community, but hopefully we're getting it through what the council members are saying, what they think is the biggest thing that's wrong or missing with this version of the letter. Or the top 2 things, or the top, God forbid, 5 things.
You mean you're asking right now?
That will help a lot, rather than me or Greg or Claire having to listen to this video over and over again, trying to pick out what people think are important, is to have it all summarized here at the end.
Well, if somebody's got that on the top of their head, that would be great. Otherwise, we're getting pretty late, and I would ask people to email their top problem with it.
I'll just go. I have 2 small-ish things. One is I agree with Dolores's point about the fire station relocation. I don't think that belongs in this letter. And second thing is the comment on sidewalks. I disagree with, I mean, I know what we're saying is that many residents are opposed to them, which is pretty vague. I feel like sidewalks are a necessary part of this project. So I would prefer not to disagree with the sidewalks in this letter, just because I think if you're going to have a lot of people, you have to have somewhere for them to walk. You can't have them walking in the street.
Okay, so those are your 2 top critiques. Does anybody else have anything on the top of their head that they would like to put down as their top 1 or 2 or 3?
Could I just mention, I mean, you know, I have 7 things, right? And they're in the letter that was drafted with Gus. But the one thing that is still not there is Len's contribution on complete streets. I would really want to see what he's going to write. And I would consider putting that in the letter.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not clear at I mean, once I guess if you wrap it up today, then you're done, and I can send it and to the whole council. If you're still in process and I send it, I'm not sure where that leads it. I'm happy either way, but
I think you should go. I wish we understood it more, but I think that your current plan is good.
Okay.
So I'm ready to comment, Claire.
I was just going to ask you about that.
So
can you give us the 1 or 2 things that you think?
2 things are that I'm concerned with the concept of the level of speed limit reduction. I've already really expressed that. I'm also I'm very concerned in the letter that there is no discussion about the toxic materials that are on the site. You know what? I'm so sad I can't express my learning about Harold's situation, but he has always really at the top of his comments were the whole concept of the toxic materials. So I think that come on, that has to be included. Okay. I'll stop there.
Okay. I think it is included, but it's included very briefly.
And it's actually in their documents as well.
Okay. Anybody else, anything that they want to leave us with tonight? If not, thank you for all your input. I really appreciate everybody's work. And we'll move to council activity.
Do you want to take up the minutes at this point, or?
Do we do that?
I suggest to just defer it to next week, the next meeting.
Well, then we're going to have the same problem with the minutes from this meeting.
Okay, so
you just have to deal with
why don't you go with why you pulled the minutes then?
Okay, I pulled them because they're way too long. They read like a conversation. They shouldn't. A conversation should be summarized. It goes on for pages and pages and pages, and double spaced at that. There are typos that a simple spelling check should have caught. In the September 14th minutes, the entire discussion of QA about workshops was dropped, which was a pretty important outcome of the discussion. I think these minutes are they're both overly verbose and they're incomplete, which is a really, really bad combination. We've had this before. Approve that are just bad minutes on the promise that things would improve. And here we are again, they're late and they're bad. So I can't vote for these. Well, let me rephrase that. If there's a vote on these minutes, I will vote against them. But I very, 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 very strongly request that we go back to a more abbreviated version of the minutes and ones that capture important statements by public officials.
One of the things I was thinking about this afternoon that we can do next year at the retreat is have the opportunity for people to learn models of summarizing meetings that might be useful for minutes, because it's possible people have not had that kind of training. Nonetheless, they are way too long. I agree. Is it possible you could redo them next time?
Yeah, no, I don't debate that. I'm working with a team that was assembled and I was completely short of time. So this is where they are. I have my idea on where they should go. So I have no problem doing a rework for the next meeting, including these.
Okay. Okay, so we'll take another look at the next meeting then. And thank you for doing that.
I just wanted to point out that I agree with everyone in terms of it reads more like a transcript than minutes, especially the ones from August 24th. It's kind of strange to me that one is 15 pages and one is 5 pages for like approximately the same length of meeting. And their name, again, not my name. My name's spelled correctly, I think, this time everywhere, but
we worked hard on that.
I noticed at least Harvey's last name was spelled incorrectly. And actually Harold's name was spelled wrong too.
Okay, so we will look at them for next time. And if you want to talk to me about it, if you need any kind of help, just please do so. I'm happy to help.
Okay.
Okay. Council activity?
It looked like Greg had a comment on the minutes too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Greg.
Well, I don't want to comment on the minutes anymore. You've got my comments and you're on top of it. I did want to cover several council member activity things that I think are important to the community, and I'll go as fast as I can. So I represented the MCC at Half Moon Bay City Council, SAM, and MWSD meetings. At Half Moon Bay, Joaquin Jimenez indicated he would be willing to help outreach for an appointee for the MCC since we're going to be one short. And so I thought that's potentially useful. Maybe he can help us get somebody from the Hispanic community at Pillar Ridge. So I've sent him an email and I expect to be working with him to see if we can get somebody to step up. There are 2 things that are still hanging regarding DPW. One is school traffic signs. Quavo wanted to agree to a meeting. Farallone's agreed that they can hold it if DPW has an insurance policy and a form is submitted, but we haven't decided on the venue. We're working on what time of what day will fit. And I expect by the time we have the next meeting, we'll be prepared to announce that we're going to have a community meeting for the people in Montara affected by the school traffic signs. My question, and I don't know that I need an answer this minute, but for the council, if you could tell me how we should outreach to the community, what is okay to post on the MCC website about this meeting, what has to be discussed first in public meeting, I'd like to know, because I would like to make sure that we do a broader outreach in Montara. Same thing in El Granado on the sidewalks. Okay. Mark Wilbanks has contacted the neighbors in his area that were concerned. It looks like a Zoom would be the thing. But how do we reach the rest of the community? Can I post something on the MCC website inviting people? You know, do I do an article on Coastside Buzz? Do we dare use an MCC email list? Okay, so those are questions. And then the last thing is the sewer in Sam. This came up in the draft of the letter. It's one example of our infrastructure problems. I don't know if you're aware, I've mentioned this before, but our sewer system was actually over capacity twice in the last year. Okay, and that affects Cypress Point and everybody. There's a lot that could be said about this, but if you read my email, which I posted, I think you'll understand the issues, and I don't need to take the council time. But it is an example of an issue going forward, in my mind, of whether the MCC reacts to things or initiates, and whether we have responsibility to look over the shoulders of other agencies who are not being well managed. And the SAM situation is a multi-agency intergovernmental thing with a lot of problems. So I'll just mention that some of those are that the sewer is already overflowed. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else have council activity reports?
I do, but first a couple answers to Greg. You can publicize this thing however you possibly can, as long as you don't pay for it. And that includes on the MCC website, although try and keep it reasonably brief. You can also put up a picture. I don't understand the comment about insurance. We've used other facilities all over the place without any insurance issues ever.
Fairlawn requires that the people holding the meeting in its facility have insurance. I think it's
county has insurance. It's self-insured, and we've met at Fairlawn View many times without any.
Great.
So unless they've got some brand new policy.
You can use Nextdoor.
Yeah,
which probably has more readership than the MCC website.
Okay, good. Great.
And we have also in the past used the MCC email list for special meetings. So I do think it's possible to send a separate email out.
Absolutely. We can treat it as an agenda for the meetings and send them out.
And we're still trying to get those mailing lists consolidated.
Yeah, David and I need to work on that.
So I could coordinate with Michelle on using our mailing list. I can do Nextdoor and our website myself, and I'll let you.
Be good, because I need to train you anyway, or someone on taking it over.
It's going to go out to the agenda list and let.
I heard Dan was going to take over email distribution next term.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, council activity. The only thing I had to report is while I was looking at the progress of the parallel trail, and by the way, they put in the piling casings yesterday and today, as I ran into Scott Bollinger, who is the other new person on the MCC, standing there talking, and he mentioned it was Dan who talked him into filing, so thank you, Dan. And so hopefully he will be seen at some of these meetings sometime soon. That's it.
Okay. All right.
I just wanted to report that I attended the RCD meeting as usual, and I'm excited to be taking a position as a director. I was an associate director. It's starting in June, and TJ Glothier, who's been on the RCD for many, many years, is actually moving out of the area. And so I've been appointed to take his position, and will be sworn in at the next meeting.
Well, congratulations.
You may want to double check with Tim Fox just to be absolutely sure that doesn't fall afoul of the no dual boards and commissions policy.
Okay. Good point.
And if it does, then you have to delay until December.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, next
So
meeting.
hold on. I was on a bike ride down the coastal trail, and I noticed that there is some significant erosion directly across from where the skate ramp is at Surfers Beach. A little bit closer to the outhouses versus the staircase. And there's 2 yellow cones that are representing that there's some kind of a danger. But if you go underneath and you look, the concrete surface, there's nothing underneath it. So I noticed that, and then I went on further and looked at the bridge work at the Medio Creek Trail, which is coming along. Seems to be pretty well, and that's it. Other than, I probably should have let Lena know earlier, and I will follow up. There's a little bit of a concern of a little bit more notification, or I hate to ask for more cones, but something, because there's this concrete that just goes out and there's nothing underneath it. Directly across from the skate park in El Granada. That's all.
The county moved extra riprap underneath that once before, and the problem is the waves keep pulling it away. So yeah, it's important.
Yeah, there's some, I don't know what level of usage it is, but there's some type of there's a steel lid above a concrete. It looks like what was at one time a storm drain access of some. I'm not sure what the purpose, but it's right there, and that may be leaking. I don't know. You're saying, Dave, that county's already acknowledged it and they're going to address it by adding.
No, this was 2-3 years ago. The same thing happened, and they moved in more riprap.
Okay, so it's a reoccurring. Thank you, Dave. Didn't know that. Thank you. Yeah, there's something I want to say. It's a leakage. That obviously there's some pipe that was underneath there at one point in time, because there's a steel lid access to this pipe, and I don't know if it's not being used anymore. It's hard to really know, but my guess is that there's some leakage through that, which is adding to the erosion. Thank you.
Okay. Next meeting, hopefully we'll go ahead and be able to approve a letter on Cypress Point. We also have a number of people that have requested to come talk to us about things like land purchases by Mid-Penn, public works, road safety projects. We have to put all that together. If there's something somebody specifically wants us to pay attention to and add to the list at this point. I know that you wanted to talk about artificial turf, Dan. Any other ideas people want to throw out there?
Artificial turf, yes. Should be discussed, yes.
Drainage. There was a CAL FIRE video on Nextdoor showing all of Carlos Street from like Marine down to by the sheriff's substation. I think that's California Avenue that was flooded in December of last year without a Cypress Point.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn this meeting.
I second.
Dan?
Bye. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll have to vote.
Yeah.
You call us.
Go through the vote. Give me a second. Okay. So, Claire?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave,
Yeah.
I'm yes. Jill,
Yes.
all right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Oh, by the way, first flush has happened. There wasn't water, but we did do.
What?
The RCD, first flush.
Yeah, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
rained yet.
Yes, we did it.
You did it for that little rain?
Yeah, there was barely enough water in San Vicente Creek and at West Point, and the two places I did it.
Was it worth it?
Oh, wow.
We're adjourned.
Yeah, this is chit chat. We're done. You're absolutely right. You can go.
You're dismissed.
All right.